Have you ever looked at a can of corned beef and wondered, where's the corn in this? It's a fair question. There's plenty of beef inside, but not a single kernel anywhere. For generations, the name corned beef has confused people because it sounds like a beef and corn dish. But here's the truth, this food has nothing to do with the vegetable we call corn today. The term corned comes from something much older, and much saltier. Today, we're exploring the history behind the name corned beef and how this preserved meat spread across the world. Welcome to the history of tiny things. To understand the name, we have to go back to a time before refrigerators. Preserving food was a real challenge, and people needed ways to make meat last longer. One of the most effective methods was salting. Salt pulled moisture out of the meat and prevented bacteria from growing. But this wasn't ordinary salt. People used large, coarse chunks of it. In Old English, the word corn didn't mean maize, it meant any small, hard grain or particle. So the corn in corned beef referred to those big grains of salt, not the vegetable. When beef was packed in these large corns of salt, it naturally earned the name corned beef. This method wasn't about flavor, it was about survival. Before refrigeration, salting was essential for keeping meat edible through winters or long sea voyages. Corned beef became especially common in places like Ireland and England. By the 1600s, Irish corned beef was being exported across Europe and even the Americas. Ironically, most Irish people at the time couldn't afford to eat it. The best beef was produced for export, while locals lived on pork and vegetables. The corned beef we think of as Irish became more common among Irish immigrants in America. In the 19th century, millions of Irish immigrants arrived in the United States. They brought their cooking traditions but adapted to what was available. Pork was expensive in American cities, but beef was cheap. Jewish butchers in New York were making their own salted beef, reminding immigrants of home. The two traditions blended, and corned beef with cabbage became a favorite among Irish Americans. Ironically, this Irish meal is actually more of an Irish-American creation. In Ireland, bacon and cabbage were far more common. Beyond home kitchens, corned beef played an important role in global history. Because it lasted so long, it became essential for sailors and soldiers. During the Age of Exploration, salted meats were critical on long voyages. In the 18th and 19th centuries, the British Navy relied heavily on salted beef and pork. Later, during both World Wars, canned corned beef became a practical ration. It stored easily, required no cooking, and survived harsh conditions. The rectangular can design made the meat easier to ship, stack, and open. What seems like a simple food today once had major logistical importance. As time went on, corned beef spread far beyond the British Isles and the United States. In the Caribbean, it appeared in dishes like bully beef and rice. In the Philippines, it became a beloved breakfast food with garlic rice and eggs. Across Latin America, it filled empanadas and sandwiches. In Hong Kong, it found its way into macaroni soup. Every region made corned beef its own, turning a humble preserved meat into a global favorite. Today, the term corned beef means two different things depending on where you are. In the US, it refers to brined beef brisket served with cabbage, soft, juicy, and sliced fresh. In many other countries, it means the canned version, salty, shredded beef packed into tins. Both come from the same idea, preserving beef with salt. The canned version is cooked, pressed, and sealed for long storage. The fresh version is brined and boiled, keeping more of the traditional texture. But both trace their name back to those coarse salt grains that began the process centuries ago. So the next time you open a can of corned beef or see it served with cabbage, remember. It has nothing to do with modern corn. The name is a leftover from a time when corn meant a grain or particle. As English evolved, the word came to mean maize, but the old name stayed. Food names can preserve history just as well as salt preserves meat. The meaning of corn changed, but the salty beef that carried the name never did. So why is it called corned beef if there's no corn? Because centuries ago, those big grains of salt, those corns, kept beef fresh long before refrigerators existed. A simple preservation method became a comfort food, a symbol of survival, and a bridge between cultures. From Irish exports to American delis and Filipino breakfasts, corned beef has traveled a long way. All because of a word whose meaning shifted over time. Funny how language, like food, changes but still carries a bit of history in every bite. Thank you for watching. If you have ideas for our next video, share them in the comments, we'll acknowledge your contribution. Thanks for joining us on this journey through the history of tiny things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories hidden in everyday details.